Two tails, one head. Yin yang. Three tails, old yin. Two tails, one head. Yin yang. Two heads, one tail. Yang yin. Two tails, one head, yin yang. 3 heads, old yang. Do a quick reading from the Book of Balance and Harmony. These essays, conversations, poetry, and songs about the secrets of Taoism teach how to live a centered and orderly life. "20. Veiled words. Those who do not clearly understand are externally fixated on body, mind, society, and events, and they inwardly dwell on sensations, conceptions, actions, and consciousness. Therefore, they change along with the world, are born and perish along with forms." Buddhist literature says if people want to know all the Buddhas of past, present, and future, they should see that the natures of the world of phenomena are all created by mind. This means that when there is creation, then there is change. Creation and change both derive from mind. People all think that what creates and changes myriad beings is the fashioner of creation and change, but I do not agree. There is basically no fashioner of creation and change. Beings create and change themselves. How is this so? All beings have mind. It is because they have mind that there is creation and change. This is what I call self-creation and self-change. The forms of all in the world that has form are originally non-existent. Producing existence where there was none is called creation. When there is production, then there is destruction. When there is destruction, there is reversion to non-existence. This is called change. Repeated creation and change is the norm for beings. The essence of the unique reality is fundamentally existent. It exists but has no form, so it has no creation or change. This is the norm of the Tao. People only know it has no creation or change and think it does not create or change. They do not know there is great creation and change existing therein. Who can know this without clear understanding? Those with clear understanding, those whose knowledge and wisdom are perfected, are able to see all phenomena as empty of absoluteness. Then the unified mind returns to tranquility and lives independently in a transcendent state. Therefore, there is no creation or change for them. Those who do not clearly understand are externally fixated on body, mind, society, and events, and they inwardly dwell on sensations, conceptions, actions, and consciousness. Therefore, they change along with the world, are born and perish along with forms. What the eye sees is called form. Received in the mind, it is called sensation. Once taken into the mind in the form of a mental picture, it is called conception. When conception continues, it leads to doing. This is called action. The result of action, conforming to the good or bad nature of the action, is called conditioned consciousness. The flurry of conditioned consciousness is the root of routine existence. Thus, it is impossible to get out of creation and change. Anyone who is not bound by illusory objects, not defiled by the impact of phenomena, not obstructed by wandering feelings, and not afflicted by craving, will then be able to see forms, sensations, conceptions, actions, and conditioned consciousness as empty of ultimate reality. Since these are empty, how can there be creation and change? This is what the Buddhists call the ineffable mind of nirvana. Taoist literature says being and non-being produce one another. That is, non-being produces being, this is creation. Being produces non-being, this is change. Taoist literature also says effecting ultimate openness, keeping utterly quiet, as myriad things act in concert, I thereby watch the return. That is, watching return is knowing change. If you know change, you do not change. And if you do not change, how can there be creation? Who can reach this but those who see clearly, without obstruction? Those of clear perception, pure and illumined, can see that body, mind, society, and events exist in insubstantial illusion. Existence makes things and beings which revert to insubstantial illusions once they have reached their culmination. Those who see in this way know the formless form is the true form. Because they nurture the formless form, they always preserve the bodiless body, and so they keep reality complete. When one is unadulterated, pure, completely whole, there is a merging with the infinite. In undifferentiated vastness, there is a merging with the unparalleled. Transcending even beyond open nothingness, this is called freedom from creation and change. People with fixations are physically and mentally unsettled, assailed by thoughts and worries. They therefore lose the formless and the bodiless, and so they flow in the waves of birth and death, always sunk in the sea of suffering. If you can collect body and mind, set aside thoughts and worries, not let inner states out, not let external objects in, and be inwardly and outwardly clear and serene, this is called clarification. When you get to the point where you inwardly forget the mind and outwardly forget the body, so that the unique reality is clear and you are like cosmic space, open and unobstructed, how can there be any creation or change therein? Confucian literature says not envying, not seeking, no blame, no complicity. Not envying and not seeking means not being subject to creation. No blame and no complicity means not being subject to change. The Connected Sayings commentary in the I-ming says, at a distance find it in things. Nearby find it in yourself. I say that at a distance find it in things means you know all objects are insubstantial and temporary. Nearby find it in yourself means you know the physical and mental elements are all empty of ultimate reality. By outwardly being aloof of all objects and inwardly detached from the physical and mental elements, you can accord with the celestial workings, be pleased with heaven, Know the beginning and end of things. Know the reason of the hidden and the obvious. Know the explanation of life and death. Find out truth. Fulfill human nature and arrive at the purpose of life. Because of being pleased with heaven, you do not worry. Because of fulfilling nature, you do not doubt. Who can reach this but those who achieve knowledge? Those who accomplish knowledge are sincere, lucid, calm, and stable, so they know that illusory forms continually arise and pass away, that the deluded mind is discriminatory and partial, that society and the times shift and change uncertainly, and that works perish and do not last. When the refinement brought about through observation is thoroughly mature, this is called the accomplishment of sages. Because it is permeated by unity, there is no creation or change. If you do not accomplish knowledge, you cannot determine the character of things. If you cannot determine things, you change and shift along with things. Then where are essence in life? If there is fluid movement, not fixated, circulating throughout space, heaven and earth then meet in oneself. Myriad things are complete in oneself. When you return to vision of the heart of heaven, myriad existence return to open non-reification, then creation and change cease. Metaphorically speaking, if heaven and earth do not move fluidly, sun and moon do not travel, then where are the combinations of yin and yang? If yin and yang do not interact, they do not ascend and descend. Then how can myriad beings exist? The bodies of heaven and earth are pure and unified. Because they do not mix with aberrant with the true and do not change, therefore there is no creation and no change. The creation or creationless creation is great creation. The change of changeless change is great change. Those who see this thereby know that all things and beings in the world are temporary compounds, and that the operations of yin and yang are all illusions. Who but the most fluid in the world can keep up with this? Viewing the matter in this way, we can see that the three teachings, Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism, are just a matter of mind. Creation and change depend on mind, and transcendence of creation and change also depends on mind. In learning Buddhism, it is essential to see essence. To see essence, it is first necessary to remove habit-conditioned energy by means of certainly stabilized will, and to preserve clear lucidity by the power of strict observation. After that, see through all kinds of vain, illusory mental states, and do not fixate on things, so that thoughts do not follow feelings. Thoughts are the root of affliction. Mental states are the seeds of reification. When thoughts arise, all afflictions arise. When thoughts cease, all afflictions cease. When mental states are produced, all sorts of reifications are produced. When mental states pass away, all sorts of reifications pass away. When thoughts arise, stop them. All can come from mind. When you reach the point where arising and passing away itself passes away, and quiescence is bliss, this is seeing essence. Students today who cannot see essence are hindered by two obstructions, abstract and concrete. Abstract obstructions cannot be dissolved but by great perception. Concrete obstructions cannot be dissolved but by great cessation. Great perception means cutting through by knowledge. Great cessation means controlling by power. When cutting through by knowledge is perfected, all abstractions are empty of absoluteness. When controlling by power is perfected, all concretizations are empty of absoluteness. When you realize the great emptiness of emptiness and the ultimate reality of reality, this is the consummation of great perception. Then thoughts and emotional consciousness of body, mind, society, and events all stop at once. This is the consummation of great cessation. Learning Taoism is a matter of preserving essence. To preserve essence, it is first necessary to cut through delusions with the sword of wisdom. Dissolve attachment to sense experience by maximizing the transcendent primordial consciousness and minimizing the temporally conditioned consciousness. And to use the power of concentration to forget feelings, cut off rumination, remove psychological burdens, and clarify the mind. When the mind is clear, burdens are removed, rumination ended, and feelings forgotten, this is called preserving essence. When the true essence is present, there is no creation or change. Students today get carried away by emotional consciousness. If you want to get rid of emotional consciousness, first get rid of the fluctuating mind. When the mind does not fluctuate, then the body does not fluctuate. Getting rid of the fluctuating mind begins with having no thoughts. When you have fully developed the habit of freedom from thought, you can reach a state of serene concentration, free from dreams and thoughts. When this is fully developed, you can reach a state free from conception. Freedom from dreams is important for the present. Freedom from conception is important at the end of life. Free from conception, you do not create. Free from dreams, you do not change. Not creating, not changing, you are not born and do not die. The essence of the study of Confucianism lies in fulfilling human nature. Fulfilling human nature is a matter of clarifying enlightened qualities and resting in ultimate good. After you know where to rest, then you have stability. When you have stability, you can forget things in self. The statement on the hexagram mountain in the I-ming says, stopping at the back, you don't find the body. Walking in the garden, you don't see the person. No blame. Stopping in the back means forgetting oneself. Walking in the garden, not seeing the person, means forgetting things. Knowing how and where to stop, therefore being able to forget things in self, and so to keep the celestial design intact, is called fulfilling human nature. When people today cannot fulfill human nature, it is because of burdens of body and mind. Once there are burdens, there is blockage. It is necessary to apply firm decisiveness and effective resolution. By being firm and decisive, you can forget things. By being effectively resolute, you can forget self. When things and self are forgotten, you will surely fulfill human nature and arrive at the meaning of life. I observe that most people in the world think this body has a self in it. This reveals a serious lack of reflection. As this body exists due to creation, did it have a form before it was created? Did it have a name? Did it have a self? After it has changed, does it have a form? Does it have a name? Does it have a name? Does it have a self? Since none of these exist either before or after, how can we cling to reification of self only in the interval between? People do not realize that body, mind, and the world and events are fundamentally unreal in an ultimate sense. When we try to find past, present, and future, ultimately we cannot grasp them. The past has disappeared, the present changes from moment to moment, the future is uncertain. Throughout the ages, people have fixated on unreal objects in the midst of dreamlike illusion, forming the seeds of repetitious life cycles. Therefore, they are born and die without hope of release. If, on the other hand, people in the midst of these dreamlike illusory objects can experientially know them for what they are, and thus can dissolve fixations, they can reach enlightenment. One day I brought up this issue for my students to look into. 2 or 3 of them understood to some extent, so I composed this essay for them to convey mind by mind. If you can realize directly, inwardly understand, and tacitly comprehend, then you know how and where to stop. Not recounting the past, not worrying about the future, not being attached to the present. When these 3 are combined, you attain great independence. You roam freely in the ocean of tranquility, wander in the homeland of nothing whatsoever, float in the realm of contentment. When you get to this point, you will know that creation and change have no power over you. But there is still something yet higher. Tell me, what do you call that which is higher? Turn over the legs of nothingness, smash cosmic space to smithereens, and only then will you be done. The bottom trigram of our primary hexagram is read as solid, broken, broken, or you could say whole, open, whole. This is Li, fire and light. Li is fire and light, both inner and outer. As an inner light, she is consciousness at its most lucid and unclouded, holding things together in the mind, perceiving their differences and connections, and discerning the underlying patterns of relationship. And as well as vision, Li is the light that makes things visible, the power to cast light on things, spreading clarity and the awareness of order. Li is the middle daughter, living in the south, the region of midsummer and the burning sun. Our top trigram or outer trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as broken, solid, solid. This is Xun, wind, or wood. Xun is both wind and living plants. Whatever penetrates, spreads, and grows. shaping itself to the space available or shaping that space to its own nature. She is responsive flexibility, sensitively improvising and adapting. Like the wind, she can always find a way through because she never creates any resistance, and so her influence is subtle and gradual, but far-reaching. In the family of Trigrams, Xun is the eldest daughter, gentle and submissive. She belongs to the southeast and to late spring and early summer. Xun, wind or wood, above Li, fire and light, gives us the hexagram. 37. Once our changing lines, the ones with the X and O in them, 2 and 6, transform from their old selves to their younger opposites, we will have a bottom or inner trigram of solid, 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 which is Qian, heaven, and an upper trigram of broken, solid, broken, which is Kan, water. Qian is superhuman cosmic law. Enduring, he determines the nature and development of all things, from the movement of the stars to the cycle of the seasons, to causing each individual seed to grow into its own kind of plant. Heaven is creativity in its pure form, the force that drives change, and what endures within it. He confronts us with truth and what it demands, both as the absolute law of nature and as the challenge of individual calling, experienced as an inner law. He is both the awareness of what to do and how to be, and also the power to act on it. Heaven is Father, found in the northwest, the realm between autumn and winter, when the buds set and seeds fall to earth. And our top or outer trigram, Kan, is deep water, flowing and formless. He is the complement of Li, dark where Li is bright, unconscious to her sharp lucidity, and represents a more fluid, intuitive, and emotional way of perceiving. This is danger, exposure and solitude, and the need to respond with courageous self-reliance when confronted by the haunting unknown. Water is the middle sun, situated in the north, associated with midwinter and midnight. The trigram Kan, water, above Qian, heaven, gives us the supporting or secondary hexagram of 5. The question we bring to the I Ching when we consult the oracle, that question will have the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. We'll understand the answer to that question when we understand how the parts of our reading work together. The key to understanding a reading is to know your way around its main components, how they fit together, and the different roles they play. If your reading includes changing lines, then you will need to understand primary hexagram, relating hexagram, and changing lines together. The two hexagrams in conversation with one another map out your whole answer. The primary hexagram shows you quite directly what your answer involves. The relating hexagram generally describes what the answer is about for you. It sets the primary hexagram in a broader context an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. If the two hexagrams map out a landscape for you, then the changing lines stick a pin in that map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They are the immediate answer to your question. As the most specific, focused part of a reading, their message always takes precedence over all other elements. For example, the primary hexagram might describe a reassuringly secure situation, but a changing line could warn how insecure your position is within it. Might screenshot this. We will now read from the Taoist I Ching by I-ming. He wrote it as an Taoist adept in 1796, and Thomas Cleary is the one translating it. In the beginning, they give really short definitions for each hexagram. 37, our primary hexagram, has the short definition. People in the home. Governing the inner, refining the self, mastering the mind, turning the attention inward. And our supporting hexagram 5 is waiting. Waiting for the proper timing and gathering primal energy, gradually restoring the primordial in the midst of the temporal. So we have people in the home and waiting. We'll read from the text section first, which has our changing lines in it, which are our most focused part of our reading. Then we'll move on to the back that has a commentary section, which doesn't talk about changing lines. So when we get there, we'll need to remember that the most focused part of our reading was just before that. We'll be going through the Taoist I Ching. Then we'll go to James Dekorne's website, which he is a practitioner of the Tao himself, and he's compiled a bunch of short little snippets from several commentaries, and so we'll be able to see a little bit more in depth what's going on. This is largely an alchemical Taoist perspective. The next one is more so like going through a dictionary and getting a really good sense for kind of the specifics and how the different commentaries relate. And then we'll look at Hilary Barrett, who usually makes things super practical and mellowed out. I've put bookmarks throughout the whole thing, so if you want to skip to one of those, you're welcome to do so. Our primary hexagram 37, people in the home. For people in the home, it is beneficial that the women be chaste. Explanation. People in the home means there are people in the home. This is the path of governing the inner. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is wind, entering, and below is fire, luminous. When illumined, one can follow the Tao. And by following it, one can gradually develop the illumination. Receptivity and understanding are necessary to each other, like wind blowing fire so that fire grows with the wind. Here is a way to govern the home, so it is called people in the home. This hexagram represents refining the self, mastering the mind, turning the attention around to gaze inward. It follows on the previous hexagram, advance. In advance, illumination grows from receptivity. It is the work of advancing the fire and employing illumination. To advance the fire and employ illumination, it is necessary to first illumine the inner. Illumination of the inner is refining the self. Refining the self simply means refining the yin within oneself. What yin is this? It is the human mentality. In the human body, the vitality, spirit, soul, psyche, and intent all belong to yin and all take orders from the human mentality. When the human mind is calm, they all are calm. And when the human mind is agitated, they all are agitated. Refining the self simply means refining away this human mind. When you refine away the human mind, the mind of Tao spontaneously becomes manifest. When the mind of Tao becomes manifest, the mind is illumined. Then the vitality, spirit, soul, psyche, and intent all transform into guardian spirits of truth. The human body is like a home. The human vitality, spirit, soul, psyche, and intent are like the people in a home. When you refine the human mind and produce the mind of Tao, the vitality, spirit, soul, psyche, and intent each rests in its own position, and each discharges its own affairs. Joy, anger, sadness, and happiness are all harmonious and balanced, like a family being orderly. This is represented as the benefit in women being chaste. Women consider preservation of chastity valuable. Refining the self is like a woman preserving her chastity and not getting engaged. Then the true yin within oneself will become manifest. When the true yin is manifest, the open awareness of the mind is unobscured, and outside things cannot get in. Thereby one can gradually progress in an orderly manner to seek the yang of the other to the benefit of all. In the body of the hexagram, the second line is empty, below, while the fifth is solid above. When one empties the mind, one can thereby fill the belly. The benefit for female chastity is precisely that whereby one affects emptiness and preserves calm, as a strategy to establish the home and business. Therefore, practitioners of the Tao are cautious and wary and do not let any yin energy reside in the heart, even subconsciously. We'll now turn to our supporting hexagram 5, which puts the primary hexagram in a broader context, influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Supporting hexagram 5, waiting. In waiting, there is sincerity and great development. It is good to be correct. It is beneficial to cross a great river. Explanation. Waiting means there is a waiting. As to the qualities of the hexagram, above is water, a pitfall, below is heaven, which is sound and strong. Being sound and strong and able to manage in the midst of danger, it is therefore called waiting. This hexagram represents nurturing strength, awaiting the proper time. It follows on the previous hexagram, difficulty. Difficulty is movement and action in danger, restoring the primordial while in the midst of the temporal. Therefore one travels the path of strength and firmness and takes the true yang fallen in water out. Here's a subnote that says, i.e. one takes the primordial out of the conditioned. However, when the yang has been trapped in water for a long time, It is not possible to get out of danger immediately. One must lead it on gradually, waiting for the proper time to gather it. One cannot presume upon one's strength and set about the task impetuously. That would bring on danger. People give rise to yin from the culmination of yang. The yang in the center of heaven runs into the palace of earth so that earth is filled in and becomes water. The yin in the center of earth enters the palace of heaven so that heaven is hollowed and becomes fire. I'm going to show you this because it's showing a bunch of hexagrams. It's helpful to see that whole section. At this point, working with false yin and false yang, the strong becomes weak and the submissive becomes stubborn. The intent is not sincere and the mind is not right. Being aggressive, one is not aware of danger and is not receptive enough to notice obstacles. One acts dangerously, hoping for the remote chance of luck, knowing no limits. Now, if you want to get out of danger, it is necessary to know danger. Being able to recognize danger is being able to believe it is dangerous. Once you believe in the danger, you have inner control. Being careful and wary, you refine yourself and wait for the proper time. Every act is confined to its proper place, and one is not damaged by external influences. Therefore, in the path of waiting, there is sincerity and great development, gaining good fortune by being correct. Having sincerity and great development means believing in danger and being able to cope with it. That correctness is good means that by maintaining correctness, you can be free from danger. Once you believe in the danger and keep to what is right, you fend off danger by strength and firmness and use danger to nurture strength and firmness, awaiting the time to move forward and enter the lair of looking for the tiger. Not only are you able to avoid being injured by negative energy, you can also take the true yang fallen into water and return it to the palace of heaven. This is the reason that it is beneficial to cross a great river. There's another hexagram that talks about treading, and it's called treading, and it's walking on a tiger's tail, and the different lines in it, the changing lines, if you were to read those, shows your level of success in that undertaking. A great river is most dangerous. This is the image of water, which is something that fells and traps yang. That danger is most great. Believing in the danger, you cross it correctly. When the time is not yet ripe, you nurture strength, and when the time comes, you advance strength. Advancing it and nourishing it at the proper times is how you can be in danger yet cope with it, and how you can get out of danger. That strength is beneficial wherever it goes. Back to our primary hexagram 37, people in the home, to read our changing lines 2 and 6, which are our most focused part of our reading, takes precedence over all other elements, sticks a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They each have their own general context. Changing line 2 has the general context of the heart's perception, the emotional center where you make and feel connections. And changing line 6 has the general context of beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. I'll show you this as well if you wanted to screenshot that. Changing line 2 of our primary hexagram 37, people in the home. Not concentrating on anything, being chaste in the kitchen is auspicious. Explanation. Being gentle but balanced, turning the gaze around to inward examination, the heart pure and the mind quiet, not concentrating on externals, but carefully watching over one's inner state, controlling movement by stillness, preventing fragmentation by unity, not taking in external things, impervious to outside influences, is like a wife in the kitchen, remaining chaste, invariably gaining good fortune. This is refining the self and using the path of gentility. And changing line 6, there is trustworthiness, dignified. It turns out well. Explanation. Being firm yet dwelling at the top of the body of gentleness, wind, it can be trusted that the self-refinement has dignity. Refining the self with dignity, being strict in the beginning, one can naturally be fortunate in the end. This is refining the self conclusively. The writings of the masters say that if refinement of the self is immature, the restorative elixir will not crystallize. The first step of spiritual alchemy is to refine the self. When self-refinement reaches selflessness, light appears in the empty room. The primal energy comes from nothingness and solidifies into a tiny pearl, whose light pervades heaven and earth. How can any bewilderment or befuddlement befall you then? Certainly refinement of the self is no small matter. We'll now turn to the commentary section in the Taoist I Ching. If you're concerned about the kind of sexist perspectives, I think James Dekorne will handle those pretty well. Obviously, we are in different times, and these are looking at things from yin and yang perspectives for the most part, just in opposites and polarities. 37, members of a family is what it's called in the commentary section. Wind above, fire below. Wind emerges from fire, members of a family. Thus is there factuality in the speech of superior people, consistency in their deeds. I'm going to read that whole thing again. Wind emerges from fire, members of a family. Thus is there factuality in the speech of superior people, consistency in their deeds. Members of a family means the people of one family. Above is wind, below is fire. So fire is inside and wind is outside. Wind emerges from fire. Wind emerges from fire. When fire burns, wind spontaneously arises. Wind and fire of the same family. This is the image of members of a family. What superior people see in this is that just as wind and fire are in the same place, wind rising from fire, similarly others and oneself live together, and so what one can do for others is based on oneself. If one is upright oneself, others will naturally be influenced. Therefore, when superior people speak, they do not speak in vain. There must be something factual for them to speak about. When they act, they do not do so at random. There must be something consistent about their deeds. When one is careful about one's words and prudent in one's acts, those with whom one lives will also be factual in speech and consistent in deeds, and be members of a family with oneself. Members of a family does not only mean people of the same house, it means all those among whom one lives and with whom one works. When there is factuality in speech, words being based on actualities, then there is a point, there is evidence, that speech will accord with reason. When there is consistency in deeds, action having a conclusion, then there is true practice and genuine application. Those deeds will accomplish something. When one speaks factually and acts consistently, without flaw in word or deed, inwardly not losing oneself, outwardly not hurting others, then those with whom one lives and works will be influenced without anything being said, just as wind spontaneously rises when fire burns. Words are the voice of the mind. Deeds are the tune of the body. If practitioners of the Tao speak with factuality and act with consistency, then the mind will be upright and the body will be disciplined. Nature and life will have a dwelling place. Furthermore, they will be in confidence with heaven above and earth below. Confluence. They will be in confluence with heaven above and earth below, and will be members of a family with heaven and earth. And 5, our supporting hexagram from the commentary section of the Taoist I Ching. Waiting, water above, heaven below. Clouds rise to heaven, waiting. The superior person makes merry with food and drink. Again, it being our supporting hexagram means that it puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Waiting means there is something awaited. Above is water, below is heaven. Water vapor rises from earth to sky, where it condenses into clouds. When clouds form in the sky, rain may be expected. This is the image of waiting. What superior people see in this is that when people are unable to attain the universal Tao, it is because they are temperamental and unbalanced in action, because the earthly and the celestial are not in harmony. Therefore, superior people eat and drink to nourish the earthly, causing the earthly to balance the celestial. They make merry to attune the celestial, causing the celestial to join the earthly. When the earthly and the celestial are in mutual harmony, living energy is stored within, producing being from within non-being, spontaneously without forced effort. This happens because the sweet rain of life falls naturally through the coalescing of the energies of heaven and earth. The sprouts of living potential grow when the energies of yin and yang commune. Here, food and drink refers to nurturing the body so that the body is sound. Making merry refers to nurturing the mind so that the mind is unburdened. When body and mind are nurtured, the restorative elixir is easy to crystallize. Herein lies what is known as refining the self and awaiting the proper time. Now we will turn to James Dekorne. I've put links to each of the hexagrams from his site where he's compiled the Gnostic Book of Changes is what he calls it. And it's a compilation of several different commentaries and a synthesis of them really, and his own editor's notes. He is a practitioner of the Tao himself. And so often I find that his editor's notes are one of the most profound parts of this. The family, our primary hexagram 37. Other titles might be family life, clan, home, linkage, dwelling people, the psyche. A quote from D.F. Hook. May indicate a situation where the family can and should help. Judgment. Leg. For the regulation of the family, what is most advantageous is that the wife be firm and correct. Wilhelm/Baines, the family. The perseverance of the woman furthers. Ritsima/Karcher. Dwelling people, harvesting, woman, trial. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of living and working with others in a common space. It emphasizes that caring for your relation with those who you share this space and for the space itself is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to dwell with people. Slofnacy, family members, beneficial for the maiden to determine. Cleary, 1. For people in the home, it is beneficial that the woman be chaste. In the human body, the vitality, spirit, soul, psyche, and intent all belong to yin and all take orders from the human mentality. When you refine away the human mind, the mind of Tao spontaneously becomes manifest. Wu. The family indicates that it is advantageous for a woman to be persevering. This is a hexagram with its emphasis on women. Both constituent trigrams are feminine. Hence, those who endeavor to be firm and correct will have advantages. The image. Leg. Wind rising out of fire, the image of the family. The superior man speaks the truth and is consistent in his behavior. Wilhelm/Baines. Wind comes forth from fire, the image of the family. Thus, the superior man has substance in his words and duration in his way of life. Wu, wind comes forth from fire, this is the family. Thus the Junsi, or chief son, or superior person, speaks with facts and acts with perseverance. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. In family, the wife is in her correct place in the lower trigram, and the husband in his correct place in the upper. That spouses occupy their correct positions shows the correct relationship between heaven and earth. The parents rule the family. Let the father indeed be father, and the son, son. Let the elder brother be indeed elder brother, and the younger brother younger. Let the husband indeed be husband, and the wife wife. Then the family will be in its correct state. Bring the family to that state, and all under heaven will be established. The different members of the family are the different trigrams. Each of them, we have mother and father, father being heaven, mother being earth, and then we have eldest daughter and son, middle daughter and son, and youngest daughter and son. And so this is all almost mathematical in the way they can combine. So a lot less focus on sexist points and more so focused on how the trigrams relate to each other and the lines relate to each other in a harmonious way. Leg. The written Chinese character for family simply means a household or the members of a family. The lesson of the hexagram is the regulation of the family, affected by the cooperation of the husband and wife in their several spheres, and only needing it to become universal to secure the good order of the kingdom. The important place accorded to the wife is seen in the short sentence in the judgment that she be firm and correct and do her part well is essential for the family's proper regulation. The wife is represented by line 2 and the husband is her proper correlate in line 5. The relationship between heaven and earth is analogous to the relationship between husband and wife. The second sentence of the Confucian commentary, more closely rendered, would be that in the family there is an authoritative ruler is a way of naming father and mother. This means that the assertion of authority in a family should be a correct balance of force and gentleness. Anthony. The family symbolizes correct relationships between people, the family unit, the spiritual family, the sage and the student, and human groups generally. When these most basic relationships are correct, the world is made correct through the force of inner truth, through cultivation of the feminine component of our nature, and through persevering in a virtually menial position from our ego's viewpoint, so that our work can come to fruition. All this means to forego striving and self-assertion, and to allow ourselves to be led while persevering in gentleness and devotion to our path. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. For the correct regulation of the psyche, what is most important is that the ego must be firm and correct. The superior man lives his allegiance to the ideals of the work. Applying the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, the relationships within a family are analogous to the relationships within a city-state or a kingdom, and vice versa. A quote from D.H. Smith and Confucius. Society centuries before the time of Confucius had been organized on the basis of family. In the early days of the Zhou dynasty, fiefs had been allotted to the feudal lords in a system of planned colonization. These feudal lords, linked to one another and to the royal house by marriage ties, took their families, retainers, peasants, artisans, and soldiers to form self-sufficient colonies based on an agricultural economy and governed from well-fortified walled cities. These large family groupings of the nobility were preserved only so long as the relationships of parents to children, brothers to brothers, and masters to servants were effectively controlled. If the ideal city is like a family, then the analogy also holds for an individual. Here the comparison goes directly from city to psyche. A quote from Plato in the Republic. Have we any greater evil for a city than what splits it and makes it many instead of one? Or a greater good than what binds it together and makes it one? Then is that city best governed which is most like a single human being? Psychologically interpreted, the hexagram of the family symbolizes the psyche, and the Confucian commentary tells us that when its inner components all assume their proper roles and functions, then the work will come into fruition. All under heaven will be established. The identical idea has been stated in Gnostic thought, and this is a quote from the Gnostic Gospel according to Thomas. Jesus said to them, "When you make eyes in the place of an eye, and a hand in the place of a hand, and a foot in the place of a foot, and an image in the place of an image, then shall you enter the kingdom." The husband is analogous of heaven or the self, and the wife is analogous of earth or the ego. When the ego assumes its correct role as the magnetic servant of the work, then inner transformations can take place. I have paraphrased the judgment in terms of necessity of the ego to follow the dictates of the work, but one could alternately phrase it in terms of keeping emotional responses under control. For the wife to be firm and correct is to ensure that emotions, drives, and appetites are not allowed to make decisions. They are servants, not masters. This is the essence of the work, and arguably the most reiterated idea in the I-ming. A quote from R. Asiagoli in Psychosynthesis. The patient should be encouraged to use his mind through observation and discrimination to bring clearly into his awareness the irrational aspect of his drives and emotions, and also the possible drawbacks and harmfulness to himself and others of their uncontrolled manifestation. To act on the spur of an impulse, a drive, or an intense emotion can very often produce undesirable effects which one afterwards regrets. Therefore, he should learn, by repeated experiment and effort, to insert between impulse and action a stage of reflection, of mental consideration of a situation, and of critical analysis of his impulse, trying to realize its origin, its source. The 37th hexagram teaches us that the way to manage the emotions is no different than the proper management of a family. No wise parent can teach a child self-discipline by adopting the child's point of view. Permissiveness, either with our children or our own primitive drives and passions, is a sure formula for disintegration. The work demands that the ego hold the line on this issue. Indeed, it is the ego's only legitimate function. Quote from R. Asiagoli in Psychosynthesis. We are dominated by everything with which our ego becomes identified. We can dominate and control everything from which we disidentify ourselves. And our supporting hexagram, waiting, number 5, also has the possible titles of nourishment, calculated inaction, attending, biding one's time, nourishment through inaction, waiting for nourishment, moistened, and a quote from D.F. Hook, waiting with the assurance that a blessing will come. This puts our primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Judgment, leg. Waiting intimates that with sincerity and firmness, there will be brilliant success and good fortune. It will be advantageous to cross the great stream. Wilhelm/Baines, waiting. If you are sincere, you have light and success. Perseverance brings good fortune. It furthers one to cross the great water. Blofeld, calculated inaction, or exhibiting the power to wait, and the confidence of others win brilliant success. Righteous persistence brings good fortune. It will be advantageous to cross the great river or sea. The significance of this hexagram is that inaction while awaiting the outcome events will enable us to avoid a danger now threatening. Firmness, clarity of mind, and success in winning the confidence of others are now demanded of us. With them, our undertakings will prosper. Moreover, this period of inaction is a good time in which to go on a journey or else for relaxation and enjoyment. Lu, waiting. If you are sincere, you will have glory, light, and success. Continuing leads to good fortune. It is of benefit to cross the great water, to travel to remote places. Ritzema/Karcher, attending, possessing conformity, shining, growing, trial, significant, harvesting, wading the great river. Editor, possessing conformity is translated as inner and outer are in accord. Confidence of the spirits has been captured. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of being compelled to wait for and serve something. It emphasizes that fixing your attention on what is required while waiting carefully for the right moment to act is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to attend. Slofnacy, moistened. There is a return, radiant receipt. Determination is auspicious, beneficial to ford the great river. The image, leg. The image of clouds ascending over the sky forms waiting. The superior man, in accordance with this, eats and drinks, feasts and enjoys himself as if there were nothing else to employ him. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes clouds rising to the zenith. Inactivity. The superior man will pass this time in feasting and enjoyment. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. Waiting shows peril in front, but its subject does not allow himself to be involved in the dangerous defile. The success in sincerity and good fortune in firmness are shown by the position of the fifth line, which is correctly situated in the central place assigned by heaven. Crossing the great stream will be followed by meritorious achievement. Leg, waiting. Waiting is composed of the lower trigram of strength and the upper trigram of peril. Strength confronted by peril might be expected to advance boldly and deal with it at once, but the lesson of the hexagram is that it is wiser to wait until success is sure. In the situation at hand, firm correctness is all that is required for eventual victory. Crossing the great stream is a frequent expression in the I-ming, which symbolizes the undertaking of hazardous enterprises or encountering great difficulties. Historically, it refers to the Yellow River, which the lords of Chao had to cross in their revolution against the Yin dynasty tyrants. The crossing made by King Wu in 1122 BC was one of the greatest deeds in the history of China and was preceded by a long period of waiting until success could be assured. Regarding the image, it is said that the cloud that has risen to the top of the sky has nothing to do but wait until the harmony of heaven and earth require it to discharge its store of rain. The superior man is likewise counseled to enjoy his idle time while waiting for the correct moment to deal with the approaching danger. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Strength in the face of danger here consists of the will to sit tight and do nothing. The superior man carries on as if nothing was the matter and nourishes himself through inaction. There are many kinds of courage. Perhaps the greatest of all is the courage to remain unflinchingly in place when all the circumstances seem to cry out for action. It takes far more courage to wait for the dragon to slowly come to you than to rush forth and attack him in his lair. As a strategy, to outweight your opponent through pure willpower and inner strength can be more effective than a direct attack, but it can only succeed when you are truly strong. It is as if the real battle takes place on the inner planes, and the first one to act in the world thereby concedes defeat. A very large part of the work consists in disciplining oneself to wait, to take no action until some indefinite time in the future. This is exceedingly difficult to do and creates incredible stresses within the psyche, which is exactly why it is necessary. Psychologically, to cross the great stream is to subdue all of the autonomous instincts, drives, and emotions that are accustomed to responding whenever they are stimulated. As long as waiting creates feelings of stress, you can be sure that the battle has not been won. When you can wait like the superior man, as if there were nothing else to do, then you can allow yourself to hope that you may be getting somewhere. To nourish oneself through inaction is to digest and absorb the energy of one's instinctive responses. As in any nourishing assimilation, their strength then becomes your strength. The true adept is one who has digested all of his passions and is thereby empowered to use it for his own purposes. Instead of engaging in civil war, he has united his forces to act in the world. A quote from ZBS Hilary, Kabbalah and Exodus. Tradition says that Moses did not set the tabernacle up straight away, but delayed for 3 months, despite the fact that the people wanted to dedicate it at once. In this is repeated a lesson of patience concerning matters of the spirit. For instead of accepting their teacher's word, which conveyed the will of God, the Israelites sought to impose their own will over what they had made. This phenomenon is not unknown among those who cannot wait, which is a vital part of esoteric training. Unfortunately, it has to be demonstrated over and over again that the timing of a spiritual event is contingent upon a cosmic schedule and not the will of the individual. We will return to our primary hexagram 37 to read our changing lines 2 and 6. They are the most focused part of our reading, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements, and they may not 100% correspond with one another in an agreeable way, but we'll just take that and gnaw on it ourselves and see what that might mean for us. The general context of line 2, again, is the heart's perception, the emotional center where you make and feel connections. And changing line 6 has the general context of beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. So changing line 2 in hexagram 37, people in the home. Leg. The second line magnetic shows its subject taking nothing on herself, but in her central place attending to the preparation of the food. Through her firm correctness, there will be good fortune. Wu. There is nothing suitable to do outside of the family. There will be good fortune to prepare meals inside. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. The good fortune is due to the docility of its subject operating with humility. Wilhelm/Baines, the good fortune depends upon devotion and gentleness. Blowfold, namely, good fortune arising from compliance and gentleness. Ritzema/Karcher, yielding uses ground indeed. Cleary 2, what bodes well is docile obedience. Wu, the good fortune comes from a subject's modesty. Leg, line 2 is magnetic in the proper and central place in the lower trigram. It fitly represents the wife and describes her special sphere and duty. She should be unassuming in regard to all beyond her sphere, always being firm and correct. Docility is suggested by the magnetic line. The humility comes from the upper trigram, whose attribute is pliant flexibility. Notes and paraphrases. Su, the good fortune of the family lies primarily in the unassuming role of the wife, who looks after the welfare of the family and food for the sacrifice. Similarly, in governmental affairs, the state of public welfare depends primarily upon the unassuming civil servant who confines himself to the duties at hand. Wing, don't succumb to impulses now. Seek nothing by force. Restrain such actions that are not part of the business at hand. Good fortune comes when the immediate needs of the family are met. Editor, the image is a clear picture of a magnetic element remaining in its proper place. That is, the female components, emotions, feelings, etc., must remain within the psyche to nourish its growth, evolution, and eventual transformation. An inappropriate expression of emotion invariably spells disaster for the work. Since the polarity of the ego is always magnetic in relation to the dynamic self, the line can also refer to keeping the ego in its proper sphere of influence. A quote from R.M. Restak in The Brain, The Last Frontier. Our emotions are probably untrustworthy when it comes to providing us with a basis for action. Fear and aggression, for instance, were useful during thousands of years of prehistory when our ancestors had to battle for survival against savage and cunning enemies. But today, these same emotions, when unrecognized and unchecked, lead to such dangerous acts as the relentless stockpiling of nuclear arms or the unnecessary expansion of territorial borders. James Dekorne breaks line 2 down into two possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, tend to your proper business. Do not step outside your sphere of duty. And B, control your emotional responses to nourish the evolution and integration of psychic processes. And now to go to changing line 6. Leg. The sixth line dynamic shows its subject possessed of sincerity and arrayed in majesty. In the end, there will be good fortune. Wilhelm/Baines. His work commands respect. In the end, good fortune comes. Blowfold. His sincerity and or confidence is such as to make him appear awe-inspiring. Good fortune in the end. Lu. Sincerity and dignity bring good fortune. Slofnacy. There is a return, stooped like, in the end auspicious. Wu. He is confident in his dignity and will have good fortune in the end. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. This is the result of the recovery of the true character. Wilhelm/Baines. This indicates that one makes demands first of all upon himself, or upon oneself. Blowfold. He will enjoy good fortune because he subjects himself frequently to self-examination. Ritzema/Karcher. Reversing individualities, designating indeed. Cleary 2. What is auspicious about his impressiveness is that it calls for personal transformation. Wu. He often examines his own conduct. Leg. Line 6 is also dynamic, and being in a magnetic place, he might degenerate into stern severity. But he is sincere and complete in himself. His majesty is not artificial. His character is remolded and perfected, Hence his action will only lead to good fortune. The words of Mencius are aptly quoted in illustration of the lesson. If a man himself does not walk in the right path, it will not be walked in even by his wife and children. Notes and paraphrases. Su. It is the father's character which eventually determines order and unity in the family. He should be sincere and majestic. Wing. Your character and its development will be enhanced. Your sense of responsibility toward yourself and others brings good fortune and success. You will be recognized and respected for your insights and virtuous works. Editor. The concept rendered as sincerity in English is extremely important in Chinese thought, with connotations which transcend our ordinary definition of the word. Wing Tsit Chan defines it. This word means not only sincerity in the narrow sense, but also honesty, absence of fault, seriousness, being true to one's true self, being true to the nature of being, actuality, realness. The line can imply a compliment for good work, saying in effect that your attitude is in accordance with that which promotes integration and harmony in the family of the psyche. A quote from Chongcai in Enlightenment Resulting from Sincerity. When the way of heaven or principle and the nature of man or desires function separately, there cannot be sincerity. When there is a difference between the knowledge obtained by following the way of heaven and that obtained by following the nature of man, there cannot be perfect enlightenment. What is meant by enlightenment resulting from sincerity is that in which there is no distinction between the way of heaven as being great and the nature of man as being small. James Dekorne breaks down line 6 into 3 possible succinct definitions, A, B, and C. A, your heart and mind are in the right place. B, the self attains its purpose, capital self. C, self-discipline is the parent of self-respect. Turn 2 in I-ming, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future by Hilary Barrett, to our primary hexagram 37. She calls people in the home. Key questions. Where are the boundaries of the home you inhabit? How are you building inner and outer relationships into a home? What kinds of growth does this environment support? Oracle. People in the home. A woman's constancy is fruitful. The old Chinese character for home shows a pig under a roof. A home is where people rear a pig together, sharing wealth, work, and value. People in the home cooperate in their shared space and invest in it together, as in a family, workplace, school of thought, or culture, and within the structure it provides, they can recognize and understand what is valuable. To create a successful home, you need to have the constancy of a woman. Steadily, over time, your work creates a space in which all can grow freely into their natural form and find their place and their connections with others. You allow space for new things to enter and grow, becoming part of the whole inner ecosystem. You keep the space for living in. Image. Wind comes forth originally from fire. People in the home. A noble one's words have substance and her actions are consistent. A strong fire in the hearth will create its own draught. The light and warmth at the center of the home translating into far-reaching influence in the world. It represents a constant, living awareness that pervades the structure and makes its presence felt in everything that Noble One says and does. In everything the Noble One says and does. Also, the fire needs a free flow of air to burn cleanly and steadily. Real words and consistent actions keep it alight. Sequence. People in the home follows from hexagram 36, brightness hidden. Injury on the outside naturally means turning back towards the home, and so people in the home follows. The home is a refuge. Inner light that had to be hidden away from the outside world is secure here and finds expression. When you are unappreciated or unseen, you turn back and connect with like-minded people. Pair. People in the home forms a pair with hexagram 38, opposing. Opposing means outside. People in the home means inside. These two hexagrams describe a single landscape. Every inside must have its outside. Inside, you find your fellows, those who share your vision. Outside are the foreigners who see differently and do not belong in this home. And we will turn to our supporting hexagram 5, waiting, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Key questions: how can you wait patiently and with commitment? While you wait, how can you best make yourself ready? Oracle: waiting with truth and confidence, shining out, creating success. Constancy brings good fortune. Fruitful to cross the great river. You wait for what you need, like a farmer waiting for the weather to change. This is not a passive state. You can dance for rain, influence events by bringing yourself into harmony with the outcome you need, but you cannot force this. You can only attend to it. You will need patience. It may all take much longer than you had imagined. When you are fully present in waiting, your intense attention shines out like a beacon, beginning a creative engagement with the world. Not by working on anything, but by waiting on it and holding your faith. And in crossing the river, committing yourself to go as far as you can towards what you're waiting for, you began the transition into the world where it is real. We've got a cool picture here of a bunch of people eating at a table, which is interesting. We've got primary hexagram of people in the home, and then here it's like a bunch of people in a home waiting together, eating a meal. Image: the clouds are above heaven, waiting. A noble one eats, drinks, and relaxes with music. A noble one doesn't hover anxiously in the doorway watching the skies. Instead, with sureness and constancy in his heart and fluidity in his actions, he thrives in the present moment. Feasting when you can't cultivate your fields shows confidence, and it keeps you rested and prepared for the moment when you can act. In ancient China, where the ancestral spirits help to bring better weather, you would invite them to share your meals, revitalizing your relationship with what provides for you. Sequence. Waiting follows from hexagram 4, not knowing. Young things cannot do without nourishment, and so waiting follows. Waiting means the way of eating and drinking. Naturally, young things don't spring instantly into a state of full growth, and nor does wisdom or knowing. They must be nourished patiently over time. Pair. Waiting forms a pair with hexagram 6, arguing. Waiting means no progress. Arguing means no connection. Lacking what you need, you could challenge the injustice and argue your case, or wait and have faith. Though you're not moving forward, you might be inviting help and connection. Back to hexagram 37 to read our changing lines 2 and 6, which again have the general context of line 2, the heart's perception, the emotional center, where you make and feel connections, and line 6, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Changing line 2 in hexagram 37, people in the home. No direction to pursue. Stay in the center and cook. Constancy, good fortune. This is a time to concentrate on people's immediate needs, not distant aspirations or grand plans. All the necessary ingredients are already in your home, so there's no call for you to go out in pursuit of more. You may find that the center is connected to everywhere else. The work you do here might seem to be nothing more than a daily round of chores, but in fact, over time, you are steadily cultivating a space fit to receive great things. When food is prepared in the center with care and attention, people and spirits may come to share in it. And changing line 6, with truth and confidence like authority. In the end, good fortune. The influence of the home is beginning to radiate beyond its walls. It gives you a place to stand and be present where you can wield your truth powerfully and make a strong impression. As the image says, the noble one's words have substance and her actions are consistent. Such influence will take time and consistent work, and it's as well not to fall into overconfidence, but you can make your true presence felt. You are moving on from the home. Where will you go? We'll now turn to a chapter in the Tao Te Ching, chapter 49. This one has been translated by Jia Fu Feng and Jean English. And I like it because it's got the original writing and pictures with it. 49. Chapter 49 in the Tao Te Ching. The sage has no mind of his own. He is aware of the needs of others. I am good to people who are good. I am also good to people who are not good, because virtue is goodness. I have faith in people who are faithful. I also have faith in people who are not faithful, because virtue is faithfulness. The sage is shy and humble. To the world he seems confusing. Men look to him and listen. He behaves like a little child.